Did you sense meaning in that shriek?
Yes, because I don't think he was expecting that. Honestly, that whole session just looked horrible for him in a way. Yeah, from Q1 all the way through, he was up against it. Kimi had a big advantage and then seemed to have some sort of issue. And it was literally only the last lap where it came to him. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a sense of relief, but also just elation that, yeah, finally put it together. And it is nice because you do feel the pressure. And I think any moment any sports person can bounce back under pressure or perform under pressure, it has double the effect.
Yeah, and I think we knew, didn't we, coming into this weekend about this. We knew what it meant to George after what's happened, and there's just like there's the messaging from what we heard over team radio in the sprint, and the way George actually didn't react. I mean, he actually stayed fairly level-headed. He knew that his teammate was wound up about it, and then there's just, I don't know, there's a little bit of a hey.
Yeah, and you know, that Q3 session was so impressive because he had what he thought was an issue. He had that contact, then he aborts that lap halfway through. He comes into the pit lane earlier. They have to adjust the run plan. He goes out and he does a warm-up push, then a cool push. And it was actually that last push lap that allowed him to get that pole position. That was the only one that really looked like it was good enough for pole position. And when you look at that compared to his other laps, he just gains a little bit in every corner. Every corner, it's not one big mistake. He's just adjusting his driving throughout the entire lap. And that was, you know, really impressive to sort of keep cool, calm and collected under that, because there are times that drivers go out and they go, I've not got the pole, I've got one lap to do it, you know, and make a mistake, especially at a track like this. So yeah, really impressive from George, I think, through that qualifying session to put it all together, and that's why you hear the excitement in the voice.
Yeah, we'll see when we go to the Skypad shortly, but where it was won and lost for George there compared to his teammate, but exactly the same, as Crofty was saying, exactly the same gap as yesterday, 68 milliseconds.
That's insane, isn't it? It almost, it's similar to yesterday in a way, how it looked like anyone could be up for pole for the whole session. Maybe Kimi had a good advantage, but anyone was up there. Isaac Hadjar was up there at one point, Hamilton, and then suddenly you get to the last run of Q3 and it kind of all sorts itself out and you see the kind of order as maybe it should be. But yeah, I think Kimi will be a bit frustrated because half a tenth, he was so strong throughout the session. I think he's got a bit more consistent pace than George actually this weekend. I think for the race, that's going to be very important for him. George seems to put a lap in when he needs to, but yeah, Kimi felt like he had the lap in him easier throughout that whole session.
We thought when we were in Miami that we were going to see these cars wheel to wheel in the wet for the first time, but it didn't materialise because they brought it back. We got into that weather window, it actually had dry conditions. What do we expect from that? How's that? You know, with so much talk, I mean, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the weather for tomorrow. I think at the moment the best forecast, it's got quite much duller here than we expected today. We're expecting heavy rain in the morning, sort of 90% chance around the sort of 10-11 point. So as we're coming into the track, heavy rain, drying throughout the day. So the question mark will be how quickly can it stop raining and dry as we get to what local time is a 4 p.m. race.
I said talk. Do you think I said talk?
Talk. Yeah.
Talk.
Sorry.
Talk. It's difficult, isn't it? Karun, side by side, as I said, 68 milliseconds. Where, I mean, with different places from yesterday. Can you remember?
Not really. A lot has happened. I've spent a lot of time on the Skypad looking at these two drivers today, if I'm honest. But it was exactly the same 68 milliseconds as you suggested there, Simon. So let's take a look at this lap. Through turns 1 and 2, Kimi taking a little bit more curb than George there, and then that allows him to just have a bit more width on the way into the right-hander of 2. So we'll see as they come out of the corner. We use the curb on the outside as a reference, sneak up to it. You can see he's gained through the first couple of corners, so advantage Antonelli in the first 2 corners. Now I like the track usage here. Look, he's much closer to that outside wall. George leaving a little bit of gap. George, I think, conscious of the dust maybe, but then he comes up to it just before the corner. So just slightly different angles on the approach. Both of them leaving nothing to chance on the way out. Let's see, into 6 here. The curb here is really important, I think, to get it hooked up. We saw Lando using it a lot earlier. And I think the Mercedes drivers have been a bit more aware of that and really made a much more of a conscious effort than they did yesterday. Get over that curb, get the exit. But using the left-hand curb on the exit, you could see it's still Antonelli a smidge ahead of Russell. Now, George has been really good through the 8-9 chicane all weekend long. I feel like he's been a little bit quicker than Kimi. Watch his hands through there, a little bit of correction on the way. just opens up the wheel nicely. And once again, I think today, as we see here, he's now just edged a little bit back. So once again, he's taken a little pinch out of Antonelli, but such small margins between the two drivers. Down at the hairpin, break in a straight line, get the car in there. Antonelli choosing a slightly tighter line than George. Russell, a little bit of correction on the wheel on the way out, and we'll use the curb on the left-hand side. And honestly, it's a slightly different perspective in terms of the camera lens and their positioning, but they're equal. They look absolutely equal at this point. The run down now, the back straight, as we'll see them heading towards the final chicane, and now it's all about bravery, commitment at that final chicane. We'll see as we come into this curb, and there's a line there. Russell looks, he's gained a little bit down the back straight, hasn't he? Just slightly different deployment there, maybe. But this, for me, is interesting. Something odd happens in the last straight because Antonelli seems to come through the chicane quicker. Look, he's got further along that curb, so he's gained some back through the actual corner. But when we run up to the line, they both run out of battery, they both run out of steam, as does everybody else in their judgment. And Russell gets to the line first. So it'll be interesting to see and maybe hear from Mercedes whether there was just a slightly different amount of derate that happened on that run up to the line, because as you can see, that is what 68 thousandths of a second looks like, Simon, in terms of distance on the track.
Absolutely nothing. Well, a couple of metres. Okay, let's get some views from the McLaren camp. Already heard from Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, but first, his boss Andrea Stella talking with Ted.
Well, Andrea, sum up the day for McLaren if you could. A P2, very strong P2 in the sprint race, and more or less a similar result, although much closer gap to the Mercedes in qualifying.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's an encouraging day. The result in the sprint was good in terms of result and the points that we scored and the fact that we could keep up with Mercedes. And I think this trend was confirmed in the qualifying session. The trend is quite consistent. Mercedes is the fastest car. They lock up the first row, but we are a little bit closer, under 0.2 of a second. The car performs well in the corners. We lose some time in the straights. We'll have to look why we look time in the straights, but overall I think progress.
And you put the nail on the head there. You can keep up with the Mercedes despite them adding their huge upgrade package.
Well, this is encouraging in a way. We also had upgrades to the MCL40, and I don't want to miss any opportunity to thank the team for the efforts in bringing these upgrades. There's a little bit more that hopefully we will take to the coming races, especially there's a couple of items that we will review for the future races. So like I say, it's very encouraging, the trend. And tomorrow also, if you think about the race here in Canada, there could be some weather. Everything is possible, so we'll certainly do our best.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Oscar. Looks pretty similar to earlier on today. What do you make of that session, and was there anything more out there? Do you feel closer to them, not just on paper, and can you win this still tomorrow?
I think we are a bit closer, yes, but I don't think we have the ultimate pace of Mercedes still. The pace they had in the sprint before they started battling was impressive. So yeah, we got closer obviously, but not quite enough to do more than that, I don't think.
The start, though, you both got pretty decent starts earlier on. Is that the best opportunity tomorrow? And I don't know, it could have even be a rolling start, couldn't it, if this weather's coming in like it's predicted? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say about the weather. I think that's probably going to be the biggest opportunity. So we'll wait and see. I think, our starts were okay, but the run is very short to turn one here, so there's not the same ability to make progress. But we'll see what we get and go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting saying that the weather's the best opportunity for them, when actually we saw, Lando relatively competitive. Again, there's lots of caveats to that. We'll see probably over the full race whether they can actually compete with that Mercedes, particularly if they get away and ahead.
This already kind of reminds me of last year, when it was like McLaren were out front and playing down their opportunities, and anyone behind them just felt like the McLarens were off in the distance. And more often or not they were, but there were still opportunities that presented themselves. So I'm surprised that Lando and Oscar are downplaying the chance to take anything to Mercedes, especially after the sprint race. The thing that is tricky is I do think Mercedes have it in their control. Where I think the opportunities for McLaren come is if those two trip up over each other again. And I think there's a very good chance if it's dry tomorrow, they will, because Kimi's not going to want to stay behind George.
No, he's not. But will that just... I'm actually going to come back to you on this one, Jamie, because will it stay in the back of your mind? Will it stay in the back of Kimi's mind? What happened for the rest of the weekend? Yes, he seems like he got over it and he focused on qualifying.
100%. Yeah, no, it's 100% staying in his mind. I mean, not in a negative way, in a natural way. He's gone for a move. He feels hard done by, and I think he should feel hard done by given how it all played out. But I think he knows he's got performance this weekend and he knows he has pace. And I think where we're seeing this growth of confidence in Kimi, we keep talking about him as if he's a teenager, as if he's super young. He is. But he has won the last few races and he is coming in as the championship leader. So he's come in with a bit of weight and he wants to carry that weight and continue to prove that he's capable of keeping this championship alive. And, you know, he's not a teenager that should be pushed around. So even if he says what he says in the media and he plays it down a little bit, for sure he is definitely going to go out tomorrow swinging.
I think both drivers will remember what happened today because that was the point of it. That was the point of George being aggressive in the defence and holding the position, was to make sure that Kimi remembered he wasn't going to be taken out around the outside. And Kimi going around the outside quite aggressively was to prove to George that he was going to take him on and challenge him and not just sit in that P2 position and allow George drive into the distance. So what they have to manage is, can they together open a gap to the field that allows them a bit more margin, or if they're fighting with each other, that is, as Jamie said, the opportunity for the rest of the field.
Poor for George, as we're in French Canada, I was going to say, but it's not. French Canada, yeah. He won the hors d'oeuvre, but it's important for him to win the main course, right? This just feels like one of those weekends, as we've said it all weekend, that, you know, it's really, really important for George's confidence that he wins this tomorrow, and vice versa for Kimi if he wants to just keep the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, I'd like us maybe not to use food analogies for everything all the time, not to follow Crofty or Crafty on that. But I think that, you know, both drivers, it will be interesting if they're put in the same position as they were yesterday. The points on the board, the points available are much bigger. So will Kimi be as prepared to give up a P2 and risk a P3 tomorrow when there's much more points on it? It's all kicking off from a football side behind us, Argentinian fans.
It is. It's the Argentinian fans behind us and above us. They're everywhere and they make themselves heard. Right, we're going to take a quick break.
Let's go. Franco, congratulations into Q3 again. It does seem like from Miami you've taken a step forward, and nice to see it carrying on here.
Yeah, really strong. I think this weekend has been very solid, especially because it's been quite different to Miami, and Miami was a track I didn't know. We did adapt very quick and we were very strong since the start, but here we didn't have any running in free practice. I broke down in my out lap. I had 0 laps. I went straight. My first lap was in SQ, having only one run, one set of tires, and that has been very, very strong, to be honest, to adapt that quick. You know, we worked a lot with the team, with engineers, to be ready for that SQ, and I am very proud of the effort this weekend. It's been a good sprint quali. It's been a very good race. Starting 13th, finishing 9th, very close to the point, very strong pace in the midfield, and then I think quali we were just not quick enough compared to Derby, but that to me kind of makes it a bit more satisfying to be in Q3 than in Miami. Miami we were clearly the fifth team, so we were the ones to go through to Q3, but this weekend we were not. So that makes it even more satisfying and nicer onto tomorrow to be starting already in the points. It's going to be a much bigger help for the race.
So your travelling fan club is here. They've as usual, the Argentinians are here in force everywhere. Just tell us about the step. You know, you mentioned since Miami it's been a lot better. What's changed for you? What's changed in the car? What's changed in the team or your driving? Where do you think this performance has come from?
I'm very grateful with the team because they supported me in the good, in the bad moments as well. The start of the year was not great. We did struggle and it didn't go in the right direction. You know, the first 3 races were not as good. We didn't have as much pace, and the testing was very good, but then we dropped in Melbourne and we struggled in China as well and in Japan. Miami was a very big step forward, and I'm just very grateful for the support, and they have been pushing all in the right direction, in the same direction. They've been making a big effort in the factory to bring new parts and to put the car together to how I wanted. You know, they brought the rear wing for Miami, for Pierre. Here I have it as well. The floor is also different. They've been pushing very hard, flat out in the factory to get the pieces. New chassis as well for Miami, and all those things really helped. I think they helped to put my performance a bit more up there and matching Pierre a bit more, and yeah, just very happy with the pace. So yeah, looking forward to tomorrow. Hopefully it's a good race. We can score some points.
Congratulations. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, he's clearly enjoying himself now at last. It's taken a long time, but definitely career trajectory heading in the right direction for Franco Colapinto in 2026. Okay, as promised, thoughts now of the two Red Bull drivers. Max Verstappen first.
Hi Max, we heard the radio, it's impossible, losing time on the straights. Can you just, if you can, I know it's hard, sum up what is going on and what you're feeling?
I don't know. That's the honest answer. I have no idea what's going on. Everything is so confusing, and the setup change that we made I also didn't like. So yeah, it was very difficult. Yeah, I don't know, very confusing, everything.
Is there a chance it'll be better in the wet tomorrow? I know you're one of the few who maybe got a few laps in the wet during testing.
It's going to be chaos regardless, I think. So we'll see. I'm not really thinking about that, to be honest.
On the scale of cars you've driven, how tough is it at the moment?
It's not only tough, it's just everything is confusing. Yeah, so not really a lot of words.
Thank you. Thanks anyway. I feel like there's a little look of frustration on your face there, but that was fantastic. Is it because, was there any more out there at all?
Yeah, too much actually. I'm very upset because it's not how. Since Miami in Q3, I'm just not delivering and I make mistakes. So yeah, I'm not sharp enough on those final laps of Q3 and I overdrive it. There's lap time going away and it's a shame because we had a very brilliant car and I should be up there. So I'm very disappointed.
Do you have anyone in the team you can talk to, or do you have someone in your camp that you can talk to about those things to help you? Is it a mindset thing, do you think? Is it concentration?
Definitely, I do. Also, it's a combination of things, you know. Our car is not the easiest to drive. So it's definitely on a fine edge, and also we've been driving like twice in 8 weeks. So also it's hard to stay very sharp, but yeah. Also, it's also wanting too much. That's it.
Can I just elaborate on that? Do you find that you're maybe using a lot more mental capacity to understand the car and be able to drive the car, and therefore you're taking a little bit off your skill and your edge in quali? Is that what it is? Maybe?
Yeah, it's also sometimes disconnecting a bit more and not thinking, and which is something I'm not very good at. You know, I like thinking and being in control, but today wasn't helpful at all. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks.
I'm confused by those two interviews. I'm always easily confused anyway, but with what they were saying, it seemed like one was kind of more blaming the car, one blaming himself, and I'm talking about Max not understanding, but yet then they come to the end and he's like, yeah, it is. I just don't understand it. What's going on down at Red Bull then?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Max said all the setup changes they made, he didn't like the direction. So it seems to be a bit of confusion at times as to what they're changing, why they're changing, and what the expected outcome is. Definitely from Max's side, there's the standard complaints of braking, downshifts, balancing the car. And, you know, Isaac Hadjar's done a good job of getting on top of that, I think, over this weekend compared to previous weekends. But then maybe he's thinking there's more that he can get out of it himself that he's not got.
I think sometimes someone like Max knows how many tools he has available to him to get the most out of the car, so he is conscious to always try and maximise the package he has, whereas Isaac coming in a little bit fresher, obviously only his second year in Formula One, he doesn't, I think, always realise that he has more tools available, so he's always trying to get the best out of himself, and his reference is always himself, which is very, very refreshing. There's not many Formula One drivers that we get that kind of feedback from. I think from Max's point of view, it sounds like nothing seems to be working. Last year we saw them often turn things around very quickly and well across a weekend. Everything they're doing now that they think will work doesn't seem to be working, and I think they've turned that car upside down and back again, and it still doesn't seem to be giving him what he needs.
Like the rear wing.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've got one driver in Isaac Hadjar. I think he's the new harshest man on himself, isn't he, in the paddock? Because, I mean, he was leading at the end of Q2, so it was in there, but then he was just saying, I could have been much further up there, and it wasn't too bad a car.
But that's maybe what he sees. He sees him at the top of the timesheet at the end of Q2. Then he thinks that if every other driver, I think at times thinks everyone else has got the best out of the car, and they say, oh, if I could find these 2/10, they move their position up the timesheet by that 2/10. But what will happen when he goes back into the engineering office, they'll show him all the little bits that all the other drivers didn't quite put together in those Q2 laps or their Q3 laps. And I think drivers sometimes get almost caught up on those little mistakes, the tenths or the half a tenths. But you need that to be driving on the limit. You need that to be getting the most out of the car. It's very hard, Jimmy's mentioned it many times this weekend, to get everything out of a lap around here. And Isaac is being very hard on himself there.
Okay. We're going to take a short break.
I'll ask you've mentioned lacking speed in the straight line, and I know that this engine upgrade opportunity could be coming to cars that are outside of the 2% of the best performing car. It's thought in the paddock you have the best chassis, that your car is actually the best chassis, and actually if you can get that extra bit of power, you are the ones to beat.
Yeah.
So are you thinking along those lines as well? Are you thinking if we can just get this, we know we have an incredible car?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the guys at the factory have done an amazing job with the car, and we still have improvements to make, but the car is fantastic. It's just it's a battle of development through the season. Obviously, some people bring upgrades one weekend and others the other. But yeah, we're just at the mercy of the lack of power that we have. And I know that everyone worked really hard on the engine, and reliability is very good. It's just when you're lacking that straight line speed against the Merc, it's very, very tough. But nonetheless, we have to expect that the rest of the season that's just the way it is. So we'll just try and see if we can continue to add on to the car and try and close the gap. If we can go quicker through corners in some races, maybe we can get closer to challenge the front runners.
Thank you. Charles, what's the disaster? Can you define it for us and break it down?
I mean, Q1, Q2, we were just having to slow down all the time on the out laps, not putting the tires in the right window, and I just struggled incredibly a lot to put tires in the right window, and I was just on ice throughout the whole qualifying. And after resolving, I think, a good amount of the problems we had on the brakes yesterday, I was just hoping to find the confidence, but Q1 and Q2 I was just all over the place, and Q3 I managed to gain some confidence, and the tires were finally more or less in the window, and that allowed me to do an acceptable lap at the end. But I mean, acceptable, and we are P8, so it's not really acceptable, to be honest, but the lap in itself and the feeling was a bit better, but it's just too late. I mean, before that there was not one lap where I could feel the car.
You're one of the few teams who've got some data in essence on what it's like to drive these cars in the wet. What are your expectations for tomorrow, and is that an opportunity for you, or is it the same difficulty for everyone essentially in the end?
I think it's going to be tricky, obviously, for absolutely everyone, and very tricky, but the only thing that worries me is that so far I've had a nightmare of a weekend, mostly because of temperatures, and with the wet it shouldn't get any better on that.
All right, thanks, Charles.
Fred, tell us about your day then, both in the sprint race and today. Seems to be third quickest car, or is there a bigger story?
Yeah, but we knew before the weekend that it will be difficult with the upgrade of Mercedes and McLaren, and honestly that was expecting probably to be a bit more far away. And I'm quite pleased with the pace from the beginning of the weekend, that Lewis was P2 until the last attempt. And this, I think it's probably a bit more than what we were expecting. But now that the frustration is more coming from the fact that we didn't put everything together in the last stint of Q3, and we had room to do much better today.
Okay, and that was the case with Charles. Is that why he was there?
No, it was Lewis first, and Charles struggled a little bit more yesterday, a little bit with the brakes. Today, to warm up everything, it's true that its conditions are difficult. It's much colder than last year, with one step harder on compound, and it's I think the focus of everybody is on the tire prep, push, cool push, and so, and it was the same for Russell. He put a lap together at the end, but it was difficult before. The exercise will be probably even more difficult tomorrow with colder conditions.
Thank you, Fred.
I wonder, Bernie, Ferrari fans might be concerned by what they heard there from Lewis Hamilton, just about the top line speed. I mean, they designed the architecture of this engine to feature that small turbo, but they are lacking that top end speed. It looks like, I mean, we're going to know after Canada whether they're going to have an opportunity to upgrade their engine compared to the Mercedes and the Red Bulls, by the way, if they're outside of 2%. They need that, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do need that. I think, as Rachel alluded to there in a question, and Lewis was very strong in his answer to say, yes, he does believe they have the strongest chassis. In all of the corners, particularly here, you can see that Ferrari looks much quicker than the competition. And it's down every straight they seem to lose if they do not have another car in front breaking that wind barrier for them, so breaking that toe. And that's what they'll be hoping for. Now, they've obviously decided that they're going to have this small turbo to help with the starts, to balance the circuits over the years, circuits that have more cornering, more initial accelerating out of corner, not the long straights we have here. This is a bit of an outlier circuit on that. So if they get the upgrade, which was everyone sort of talking that they should get the upgrade, it's then, have they already got the upgrade ready to put on the engine for the next race that we go to? That it'll be the question for Ferrari. How quickly can they get that upgrade on?
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's a bit too easy to say they have the strongest chassis just because they're quick in the corners. I think there's always a compromise in terms of where you're finding the lap time. And I think for Ferrari, for example, they seem to find that lap time corner exits, especially with the smaller turbo. They can then compromise and do different things with car setup. So yeah, I think there's a trade-off with that. But they were looking strong in the corners. It's just obviously lacking top speed.
Okay, before we go, let's hear from Arvid Lindblad inside the top 10 again.
That's the enthusiasm.
Right? I said about getting in the points earlier. You come on, this is great, isn't it? You must be really happy.
Yeah, it's been a really good weekend so far. I'm really happy with how it's gone. I don't think it really could have gone any better, to be honest. The team have done a phenomenal job, with the upgrade. It's been working well. I've had confidence since lap 1. But I'm very happy with myself and the job I've done. I was told it's probably one of the hardest weekends of the year. It's a street circuit, it's a challenging track, a lot of bumps. It's a sprint weekend. To get on it was difficult. But I think things have, like I said, I don't think it could have gone any better. And to be best of the rest again in Q3 is really good.
Now, British drivers are known for being used to driving in the rain. So if it is as is forecast tomorrow, do you relish that, or?
I've always enjoyed driving in the rain. I think, I don't know, it's fun, it's different. I think no one knows what it's going to be like in these cars, however. It is. I did the tyre test in Suzuka and it was challenging. I think a lot of the race will just be about staying out of trouble, reacting to things on the fly. But in the end, we can't control the weather. So I and the team are going to do everything we can to maximise the race no matter what the condition.
Great job today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First time round here, we've talked about that, but he's kept it consistent over the weekend.
Completely. I'm super impressive, to be honest. It's crazy to think he had never driven this track until yesterday, and in Q3 in both qualifying sessions. So he's been super impressive. I think he's processing a lot as he's going through it, but obviously that seems to be working for him. I think tomorrow is going to be a different challenge. I think if the conditions are difficult, just keeping it on the track in itself is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I think wet conditions around here are going to lead to safety cars, and I think the biggest thing and the challenge around here is the communication. We've seen it time and time again, the communication between the driver and the pit wall, the feedback about what's happening with the radar, what rain's coming in and which tyres they should be on next is going to make all the difference.
Up until this point, Mercedes have gone backwards usually on the first lap, and the Ferraris have got ahead, but